driving wind blowing all my corn over. Doing a bit of early evening grape harvesting. These are Isabella grapes, and the downside with Isabella grapes is they don't all ripen at the same time. The green ones are not that edible, but the dark ones are, and if you don't get them when they're like this, you get none because the wildlife eat all of it or drop it on the floor and it goes rotten. So yes, I've decided to get some off the vine now, whilst there is still quite a lot here. And after the pollinating them myself episode, we have zucchinis. Yeehaw! And this morning's harvest: zucchinis, corn, chilies and tomatoes. I'm sure we could make something with that. I'm just capturing this for posterity because this Galaxy Garden's been going for 6 months. Every fortnight I plant pak choi seeds pretty much. I think I've missed maybe 2 fortnights. And this is the first pak choi that has made it into a salad. The first pak choi that has actually ended up on the table and not through the gut of a slug or a snail. Amazing. Good morning and welcome to Let's Grow Shopping. We're here for another garden update. What day are we on? We're on Monday. Since last Wednesday, Wednesday was a massive storm, a 33, 34 degree day, followed by a colossal storm in the evening. And then since then, it's just been raining and miserable. I think it was Friday, was howling wind and horizontal rain. And you'll see in a minute, it's like a bomb site. There's loads of weeds everywhere, things blown over. So I've got to go around and tidy it all up. I'm hoping to get that all done today. And yeah, I'll try and give you the sort of progress of what I've been doing. It's not all pretty every week, you know what I mean? I'm not harvesting food all the time. And there's a bit of maintenance sometimes, which this update is going to be full of, I think. This row of Silvermine corn is huge. But the wind has really played havoc with it. I hope you can see that down there. It's all blown over. I'm going to have to tie them all back up to the trellis because all the roots are still sort of okay, if you know what I mean. They're in the ground. You just stand them back up, and in order to stop them falling over again, because now they're all weak, I put you can see this piece of string I've put round these stalks that blew over a couple of weeks ago. And it's just to keep them there so that their roots can carry on functioning and supply the plant with nutrients instead of being ripped out. And the tomatoes have all been sort of ripped off the top of the trellis, hanging down. And I need to go and trim them up and tie them up again. And the bottom is starting to get, like, as tomatoes grow, the bottom gets more and more ratty, and you just snip all that off. And then it's the top we're focusing on because that's the latest growth with all the newer tomatoes. And you can kind of see the jungle I've got going on. This is Mars, which is beans and I think it's beetroot and pak choi close to me. And then further away are the watermelon at the other end, which are going amazing. They're all over the paths. You can barely see the paths between beds now. Things are really growing. The eggplants are growing really, really well, and you can see like the fennel, it's quite tall, but it blows over everywhere when it's wet and heavy, and then the wind comes, over it goes. We had a real glut of cucumbers, and they're still growing, but they really like the sunny weather, and when it's overcast for a good 4 or 5 days, the vine has started to go ratty. But it should, now the sun's coming back out, it's supposed to be, I think it's over 30 today and really high, like 37 tomorrow. Everything should start coming back to being good again. And then here's the broccoli in Venus, looking really good. And a couple of watermelon in the other end, which again, going off, covering the paths. I've had lettuce in with the broccoli, which is all going to seed. It's probably, if I harvested that now, it'd be alright, but leave it much longer and it's going to be all bitter and horrible. But yeah, everything's growing really, really well. It just needs a bit of a tidy up now. Now it's been thoroughly saturated. And incidentally, we've probably had, I think, about 150 or 200 mil of rain in the last 2 weeks. So we've gone from being parched in the last update, I think it was, to now being fully saturated with full water tanks. And the wicking beds are much as I left them last time you saw them. Radicchio still pumping out flowers, beautiful. But yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Apart from you leave it alone for a week and a pumpkin grows right out of one of them out of the compost. So I'm going to have to take that out because it's just going to get right in the way of what I want to plant later. I've just spent 3 hours tidying all this up and weeding. And I'll just zoom in and show you what I've been doing. So you can see the pink, or the orange, sorry, string that I've used to tie it up and then zigzag it through the trellis so it can't really go anywhere. It's got room to grow. I've not like choked it or anything, but that goes right along there. So all of these cones are nicely tied up, and wow, there's a path. Believe that. And then here's the path next door between the 2 corn rows, and that was full of laid down corn before. There's one there that blew down ages ago, which has rooted itself in, and I'll just show you that on these here that blew over the first. These were the first ones to blow over ages ago, and that's where it's growing from. But then this node has fully rooted itself in the floor here, like it's as solid as. So there's no point in ripping that out and trying to stand it up straight. It just curves its way upwards, and I've tied it up halfway, and now it's straight in the air. And so that's just a natural bend in the corn. And I really don't like having to put plants in straitjackets, but this corn is supposed to be growing in the wild in a big field where everything supports everything when the wind blows. But when you're trying to grow it in nice little rows where there's big air gaps in between, it's all going to fall over, isn't it? So yeah, you have to make some modifications to suit our human needs. And then next door in the tomatoes, I have cut all the dead leaves off the bottom. I've got rid of a few plants because they've just carked it. But you can see the tomatoes really easily now. This one on the end is really, really prolific. And yeah, I've just tied them all up right to the top of the trellis. Now that they have reached the top of the trellis, I just really let them go. I don't bother trimming them anymore. If I get more tomatoes out the top of that, then fantastic. But all of these that grew whilst it was growing up the trellis are what I was after. And I've got to be honest, the amount of effort you put into these things, I don't think we've had anything like the amount of tomatoes off of these vines as we have off the wild ones, including these yellow what they call broad ripples. But where they've come up wild, they've been far more prolific a bush than the ones I've had on this trellis. So it really calls into question, why am I taking up the real estate here when I can just grow them wild around the garden and get just as good an output, if you like. And I just want to show you that back in the day when I started this thing, I planted some kale at the end of the tomato row, and this was always really ratty and wouldn't grow. And now it's the finest kale in the garden. I let one of the plants just try and survive, and everything else is completely insect nailed. Even when it was good a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, but recently all the insects have moved in. This stuff in this old bush that was nailed by insects when it first started out in life is now looking fantastic. So you can leave them alone and just let them do their thing. The bush going to seed is a red lettuce, which is my seed capturing one. And then we come to the row of eggplant, which is doing quite well despite being ladybug chewed. I've had to chop a few plants out of here too because I think the weather has got to them. Like 5 days of overcast weather with a lot of water is not what eggplants are after. They're just after out and out sun. And so yeah, some of them didn't make it. And I've cleaned, if I was after making a commercial amaranth operation, I think I'm halfway there already. Amaranth is my weed of choice at the moment, and once I've got rid of all that, everything looks quite neat. I've piled all the watermelon vines up on top of each other, and there are some little buds of watermelons in there, which is quite fantastic because like I've said, we never grow watermelon on purpose in this place. So everything's looking quite cool there. Here is this week's tray of seeds. I've dipped out on a few to put I put 3 rows of bush beans in and another row of purple beans, hoping to get in a decent harvest before the hot weather ends. And then this is last fortnight seedlings, which are looking okay. Some haven't germinated too well, like the kale, but I have a feeling looking at them there's a slug or something coming, trimming everything. The basil on the end, there's a few stalks with no leaves on them, which is a telltale sign. But I've rearranged this shade house, so hopefully I've disturbed the slug. And then on the end here is a month ago's seedling tray, and so still not big enough to put out in the garden really, and I'm waiting for them to get bigger. I'm feeding them worm wee now. It stopped raining a bit, and hopefully they get a move on. So I'm going to have a bit of a backup of stuff to transplant shortly. And I guess one thing this is telling me is, you know, the seeds I'm raising from today, if they end up as big as these seeds in a couple of weeks, then there's not really much point in planting seeds in the middle of the hot spell in summer. And so I could have a month's break before planting seeds again, and then just do 2 trays at once to get the volume of produce back. And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I thought I'd try again with the carrots. So put 2 more rows in, watered them with worm wee, and then covered them over, and hopefully we get some success. And I just want to show you a little example of what happens if you take your hands off the wheel. This is the nectarine tree with that little teepee I put on it to stop it blowing around in the wind. And then underneath, the tomatoes, pumpkins and everything else has gone crazy. And Shizzo has self-seeded in there. There's a turmeric, a black turmeric right there. Yeah, everything goes crazy. Loads of amaranth coming out of the compost. And so you can't really see what's going on in there, but if you can stand the chaos, that soil under there is just having a whale of a time because it's not drying out. Nothing's really suffering in there, as you can see. So I just let it be if I can. I have to trim the tomatoes up around the edges and the pumpkins, because they'll just go all over the path. And hopefully when I pull that all apart, there'll be a few tomatoes, a couple of pumpkins and some turmeric in there, and then we'll have nectarines next spring. The zucchinis have suffered during that miserable spell, starting to get flowers out again. I've tidied them up a bit by removing the early leaves that are the first to rot, a bit like the tomatoes. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some more female flowers out and I can do some pollinating again. But we've not had a zucchini probably since just after my last update. And the beans are struggling along, hence I've planted another load in that seed tray. I'm going to see if I can chuck some seedlings in and get some moving, because yeah, I get more beans from the community garden than I do our own, and I've planted a lot of plants. But there are a few, as you can see. So that's about it. I can't say I've done much in the garden since the last update. We've just been harvesting and enjoying the rain really after that massive dry spell. One thing I have been doing is researching soil, which I'm hoping to do a video shortly. Yeah, lots of interesting nuances to how you do worm wheat and apply it to your soil, and what your soil likes for different kinds of plants. Yeah, very interesting stuff. The person I've been researching is Elaine Ingham. She's got this site called the Soil Food Web, and she's full of a mine of information. Loving it. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you soon. Thank you for watching.